Shay and Tally are hanging out talking about the surgery that will turn them into pretties. Tally wants to use the wall screen to show Shay her options and talks her into creating a morph, a sketch of what she could look like after the surgery. Let's pick up on page 40 with the last paragraph that begins seconds later. Seconds later, two faces appeared on the screen. Both of them were Shay, but there were obvious differences. One looked wild, slightly angry. The other had a slightly distant expression, like someone having a daydream. It's weird how that works, isn't it? Tally said. Like two different people. Shay nodded. Creepy. Ugly faces were always asymmetrical. Neither half looked exactly like the other. So the first thing the Morpho software did was take each side of your face and double it, like holding a mirror right down the middle, creating two examples of perfect symmetry. Already, both of the symmetrical Shays looked better than the original. So, Shay, which do you think is your good side? Why do I have to be symmetrical? I'd rather have a face with two different sides. Tally groaned. That's a sign of childhood stress. No one wants to look at that. Gee, I wouldn't want to look stressed, Shay snorted and pointed at the wilder looking face. Okay, whatever. The right one's better, don't you think? I hate my right side. I always start with the left. Yeah, well, I happen to like my right side. Looks tougher. Okay, you're the boss. Tally blinked, and the right side face filled the screen. First, the basics. The software took over. The eyes gradually grew, reducing the size of the nose between them. Shay's cheekbones moved upward, and her lips became a tiny bit fuller. They were already almost pretty sized. Every blemish disappeared, her skin turning flawlessly smooth. The skull moved subtly under the features, the angle of her forehead tilting back, her chin becoming more defined, her jaw stronger. When it was done, Tally whistled. Wow, that's pretty good already. Great, Shay groaned. I totally look like every other new pretty in the world. Well, sure, we just got started. How about some hair on you? Tally blinked through the menus quickly, picking a style at random. When the wall screen flashed, Shay fell over on the floor in a fit of giggles. The high hairdo towered over her thin face like a dunce cap, the white blonde hair utterly incongruous with her olive skin. Tally could hardly manage to speak through her own laughter. Okay, maybe not that. She flipped through more styles, settling on basic hair, dark and short. Let's get the face right first. She tweaked the eyebrows, making their arch more dramatic, and added roundness to the cheeks. Shay was still too skinny, even after the Morpho software had pulled her toward the average. And maybe a bit lighter? Tally took the shade of the skin closer to baseline. Hey, Squint, Shay said. Whose face is this, anyway? Just playing, Tally said. You want to take a shot? No, I want to go hoverboarding. Sure, great. But first, let's get this right. What do you mean, get it right, Tally? Maybe I think my face is already right. Yeah, it's great. Tally rolled her eyes. For an ugly. Shay scowled. What? Can't you stand me? Do you need to get some picture into your head so that you can imagine it instead of my face? Shay, come on, it's just for fun. Making ourselves feel ugly is not fun. We are ugly. The whole game is just designed to make us hate ourselves. Tally groaned and flopped back onto her bed, glaring up at the ceiling. Shay could be so weird sometimes. She always had a chip on her shoulder about the operation, like someone was making her turn 16. Right, and things were so great back when everyone was ugly. Or did you miss that day in school? Yeah, I know, Shay recited. Everyone judged everyone else based on their appearance. People who were taller got better jobs, and people even voted for some politicians just because they weren't quite as ugly as everybody else, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and people killed one another over stuff like having different skin color. Tally shook her head. No matter how many times they repeated it at school, she'd never really quite believed that one. So, what if people look more alike now? It's the only way to make people equal. How about making them smarter? Tally laughed. Fat chance. Anyway, it's just to see what you and I will look like in only 2 months and 15 days. Can't we just wait until then? Tally closed her eyes, sighing. Sometimes I don't think I can. Well, tough luck. She felt Shay's weight on the bed and a light punch on her arm. Hey, might as well make the best of it. Can we go hoverboarding now, please? Tally opened her eyes and saw that her friend was smiling. Okay, hoverboard. She sat up and glanced at the screen. Even without much work, Shay's face was already welcoming, vulnerable, healthy, pretty. Don't you think you're beautiful? Shay didn't look, just shrugged. That's not me. It's some committee's idea of me. Tally smiled and hugged her. It will be you, though. Really you. Soon. Page 45. Pretty boring. I think you're ready. Tally cruised to a stop, right foot down, left foot up, bend the knees. Ready for what? Shay drifted slowly past, letting the breeze tug her along. They were as high up and far out as hoverboards would go, just above treetop level at the edge of town. It was amazing how quickly Tally had gotten used to being up high, with nothing but a board and bracelets between her and a long fall. The view from up here was fantastic. Behind them, the spires of New Pretty Town rose from the center of town, and around them was the green belt, a swath of forest that separated the middle and late pretties from the youngsters. Older generations of pretties lived out in the suburbs, hidden by the hills, in rows of big houses separated by strips of private garden for their littlies to play in. Shay smiled. Ready for a night ride. Oh, look, I don't know if I want to cross the river again, Tally said, remembering her promise to Paris. She and Shay had shown each other a lot of tricks over the last 3 weeks, but they hadn't been back to New Pretty Town since the night they'd met. Until we get turned, of course. After last time, the wardens are probably all, I wasn't talking about New Pretty Town, Shay interrupted. That place is boring anyway. We'd have to sneak around all night. Oh, okay. You mean just boarding around Uglyville? Shay shook her head, still coasting gradually away on the breeze. Tally shifted her weight on the board uncomfortably. Where else is there? Shay put her hands in her pockets and spread her arms, turning her dorm's team jacket into a sail. The breeze pulled her farther away from Tally. By reflex, Tally tipped her toes forward so that her board would keep up. Well, there's out there. Shay nodded at the open land before them. The suburbs? That's Dullsville. Not the burbs. Past them. Shay slid her feet in opposite directions to the very edges of the board. Her skirt caught the cool evening wind, which tugged her away even faster. She was drifting toward the outer edge of the green belt. Off limits. Tally planted her feet and dipped the board and pulled up next to her friend. What do you mean? Outside the city completely? Yeah. That's crazy. There's nothing out there. There's plenty out there. Real trees, hundreds of years old, mountains, and the ruins. Ever been there? Tally blinked. Of course. I don't mean on a school trip, Tally. You ever been there at night? Tally brought her board to a sharp halt. The rusty ruins were the remains of an old city, a hulking reminder of back when there'd been way too many people and everyone was incredibly stupid and ugly. No way. Don't tell me you have. Shay nodded. Tally's mouth dropped open. That's impossible. You think you're the only one who knows good tricks? Well, maybe I believe you, Tally said. Shay had that look on her face, the one Tally had learned to watch out for. But what if we get busted? Shay laughed. Tally, there's nothing out there. Like you just said, nothing and no one to bust us. Do hoverboards even work out there? Does anything? Special ones do if you know how to trick them and where to ride. And getting past the burbs is easy. You take the river the whole way. Farther upstream, it's whitewater, too rough for skimmers. Tally's mouth dropped open again. You really have done this before. A gust of wind billowed in Shay's jacket, and she slid farther away, still smiling. Tally had to lean her board into motion again to stay within earshot. A treetop brushed her ankles as the ground below them started to rise. It'll be really fun, Shay called. Sounds too risky. Come on. I've been wanting to show you this since we met, since you told me you had crashed a pretty party and pulled a fire alarm. Tally swallowed, wishing she'd told the whole truth about that night, about how it had all just sort of happened. Shay seemed to think she was the world's biggest daredevil now. Well, I mean, the alarm thing was partly an accident, kind of. Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe we should wait. It's only a couple of months now. Oh, that's right, Shay said. A couple of months, and we'll be stuck inside the river. Pretty and boring. Tally snorted. I don't think it's exactly boring, Shay. Doing what you're supposed to do is always boring. I can't imagine anything worse than being required to have fun. I can, Tally said quietly, never having any. Listen, Tally, these 2 months are our last chance to do anything really cool, to be ourselves. Once we turn, it's new pretty, middle pretty, late pretty. She dropped her arms and her board stopped drifting. Then dead pretty. Better than dead ugly, Tally said. Shay shrugged and opened her jacket into a sail again. They weren't far from the edge of the green belt now. Soon Shay would get a warning. Then her board would tattle. Besides, Tally argued, just because we get the operation doesn't mean we can't do stuff like this. But pretties never do, Tally, never. Tally sighed, tipping her feet again to follow. Maybe that's because they have better stuff to do than kid tricks. Maybe partying in town is better than hanging out in a bunch of old ruins. Shay's eyes flashed. Or maybe when they do the operation, when they grind and stretch your bones to the right shape, peel off your face and rub all your skin away and stick in plastic cheekbones so that you look like everybody else. Maybe after going through all that, you just aren't very interesting anymore. Tally flinched. She'd never heard the operation described that way. Even in bio class, where they went into the details, it didn't sound that bad. Come on, we won't even know it's happening. You just have pretty dreams the whole time. Yeah, sure. A voice came into Tally's head. Warning, restricted area. The wind was turning cold as the sun dropped. Come on, Shay, let's go back down. It's almost dinner. Shay smiled and shook her head and pulled off her interface ring. Now she wouldn't hear the warnings. Let's go tonight. You can ride almost as well as me now. Shay, do this with me. I'll show you a roller coaster. What's a second warning? Restricted area. Tally stopped her board. If you keep going, Shay, you'll get busted and we won't be doing anything tonight. Shay shrugged as the wind tugged her farther away. I just want to show you something that's my idea of fun, Tally, before we go all pretty and only get to have everybody else's idea of fun. Tally shook her head, wanting to say that Shay had already taught her how to hoverboard, the coolest thing she'd ever learned. In less than a month, she'd come to feel like they were best friends, almost like when she'd met Paris as a littlie, and then they'd known instantly they'd be together forever. Shay, please. Tally sighed. Okay. She dropped her arms and dipped her toes to bring the board to a halt. Really? Tonight? Sure. Rusty ruins it is. Tally told herself to relax. It wasn't that big a deal, really. She broke rules all the time, and everyone went to the ruins once a year on school trips. It couldn't be dangerous or anything. Shay zoomed back from the edge of the belt, swooping up beside Tally to put her arm around her. Wait until you see the river. You said it's got white water? Yeah. Which is what? Shay smiled. It's water, but much, much better. Do you know what white water is? Find out in our next shared reading.